Hi, everyone. Thanks, Taniko. Thank you for having Mercer today. Um, so, before I get into the actual content of women in the workplace and the challenges and opportunities faced by women in the workplace, I just wanted to give you a brief background about myself. So, I'm by no means an IT expert or technical expert like most of the speakers today. So, I just wanted to put that out there. However, if I look at my career, I spent the first 11 years of my career at one of the leading IT consulting firms in the world. Um, Post that, I joined one of the banks as the head of organization development, and later on, I joined Mercer. So it's been quite a journey. I've been exposed to many organizations throughout my career, thankfully, as a result of being in consulting. And I got to see a lot of things that I wouldn't have known about or that I didn't know about before actually joining the workforce. I was young and naive. I had no idea what the all boys club meant. And after joining, I very quickly learned what that was. So when you enter the workforce, it's not just a case of, okay, I'm going to do my best and that's enough, because you're going to join the workforce with a lot of other individuals who are as hungry for success as you are. So the question is, what are you going to do that's different? What are you going to do within your organization to actually educate them and create awareness about women and the challenges and opportunities that they face? So just some practical examples of things I experienced during my career. So it's a very cutthroat environment, the IT environment, as some of you may know, and hopefully all of you will get exposed to at some point. So doing your best is not enough. You have to do better. You have to challenge yourself on a daily basis, make yourself relevant in the market so that you can't be easily replaced, essentially. Another thing I got exposed to while working, which I never thought I would see in person, was one of my colleagues being told, don't fall pregnant, you won't get promoted. So, as shocking as that is the reality we are faced with. So, Mercer runs an annual survey called When Women Thrive. And essentially, we're trying to understand the landscape for women in the workplace, and understand where the gaps are and what we can do to actually help close these gaps. Now, if we look at some of the challenges that women face in the workplace, sorry, just trying to navigate my slide. I hope you can all see this. So, sorry about that. So, if we look at the last few years, we know that the gender um, disparity in the workplace has been an issue for many years. But if we look at the stats, very little has actually been done to address the needs of women in the workplace. Now, if we look at the needs of women in the workplace and your employee experience holistically, it's not just about having a job, it's also about your health as well as the financial aspect. Now, the stats are quite scary if we look at the global statistics, where only 25% of organizations are actually tracking gender specific health needs. Now, if we look at ourselves today, men versus women, our health needs are very different, but organizations actually don't take time to actually understand that. Only 34% of organizations globally had health programs beyond just the core health plans that most organizations offer. Now, when we look at more than just the core health plan, we're talking about things like infertility coverage, domestic violence support, breast cancer diagnosis treatment, and many more. Only 27% of organizations were actually providing health education to women. Now, if organizations don't understand women's needs, then they won't be able to address it accordingly. Only 31% of companies actually gathered information regarding the different needs of women versus men. And if we look at things like caregiving, childcare, elderly care, all of those components need to be taken into consideration. Only 24% of companies assured their workforce had access to affordable contraception. Now, that's quite scary, that we're in the year 2020, and only 24% of companies offered this. Now, 9% of organizations, and I want to emphasize, only 9% actually tracked the financial wellness by gender. Now, this is quite a scary statistic, and hopefully we can change that. If we look at the 67%, which looks quite positive, but it's actually not as positive as it looks. 67% of organizations say their culture is equally supportive of men using family leave, time off, flexible working options as women. However, even though they're creating this concept of equality for men, have they addressed the needs of women adequately? So if we look at the opportunities, and technology is going to be a massive disruptor. We've been talking about technology disrupting organizations for quite a few years now. However, the importance cannot be underestimated, because the use of technology will basically help us disrupt the bias that we experience today in the workplace. Now, Mercer has created the 6 Ps in terms of opportunities to close the gender gap. The first one being passionate leadership. Now, if we look at passionate leadership, we need to ensure that leaders take accountability across all levels of the organization. So typically, ensuring gender diversity in the workplace was an HR responsibility. However, that narrative is slowly changing, and hopefully the pace will increase, because it's leadership's responsibility to actually drive the gender equality in an organization. Now, if we look at personal commitment, we need to create the same experience for women as we do for men. And it's not about a case of saying, no, we have to do this just for women. We're trying to create an environment, or promote an environment where men and women have equal opportunities in the workplace. Now, when we look at perseverance, typically what we've seen is there's usually 1 or 2 leaders in the leadership structure who actually push and promote gender equality. And unfortunately, if those individuals leave the organization, the initiative leaves with them. So we need to change that and ensure that this is built into leadership's KPIs, into balanced scorecards, to make sure that we sustain the initiatives to increase the gender equality in the workplace. If we look at the 4th P, proof, and we spoke about technology, data is going to be one of the key assets to actually help us break the bias in the organization, essentially. So data should be used to make recruitment decisions. They should be used to make promotion decisions. However, very few organizations actually use data to their advantage. Now, if we look at processes, talent practices in terms of recruitment, if we look at pay disparity, if we look at promotion opportunities, and we look at performance management, all of these processes need to be reviewed to remove the bias that usually exists today. And if we look at the 6th P being programs, so we need to help women thrive in organizations, and it's everyone's responsibility, regardless of level, to actually help each other progress within the organization. So what does this mean? We need to create programs for women which are unique to their health and their financial requirements. So there's a big focus on diversity and inclusion globally. However, when we talk about diversity, there are multiple components. It could be gender, it could be race, it could be language, it could be background. There are multiple factors that influence it. However, where organizations fall short is in the inclusion bit, because we tick boxes to say we're a diverse organization and we do A, B, and C. However, when it comes to inclusion, are organizations creating an inclusive environment for all of its employees and not just a subset of? So to close the gap, it's not something that can be done overnight. However, we need to be persistent and consistent with our efforts in order to close this gap. So I hope this was informative. I hope I've created some awareness, but it's always beneficial to go in with some sort of information to know what you can expect as a woman in the workplace. Thanks, Tanyiko.